morning and welcome to Colombo here in Sri Lanka. It's bright and early, it's around 3 AM in the morning, and later this morning we're going to be flying to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Going to be flying Sri Lankan Airlines in their business class A320 product. Really had an amazing 2 weeks here in Sri Lanka. Such a beautiful country, really pristine. A little bit less developed, had a bit of a troubled past here in Sri Lanka, so not quite as on the tourist scene as elsewhere in Asia, like usual suspects such as Bali and Thailand. But yeah, absolutely had an amazing time here in Sri Lanka, where it's a beautiful sort of tropical beaches on the south coast and west coast of the country, or the spectacular cool highland scenery of the tea plantations in the central of the island and also in the highlands. Also the very unique wildlife that you can see in almost a savanna-like national parks. Really has it all in Sri Lanka, and the best part about it is that people are really amazing, the hospitality is fantastic, and it's still a really cheap place to visit as well, so that's really fantastic. I definitely recommend you visit Sri Lanka in the next few years before it becomes an absolutely tourist hotspot. I can absolutely guarantee that's probably going to happen. Anyway, as I said before, we're flying Sri Lankan Airlines today. Originally I had booked economy class to fly to Kuala Lumpur. A little bit pricey considering AirAsia were less than half the price on the route. Anyway, I booked the economy class to Sri Lankan Airlines. Then about a week or so ago, I put little over a minimum bid, about 230 Australian dollars or a couple hundred rupees. I think it was around 49,000 rupee in total to upgrade to business class, and fairly promptly that business class upgrade came through. So really was excited to fly economy class with Sri Lankan Airlines, see what they're really like. But now we're flying business class. It's just going to be on the A320 today. First time actually flying an A320 business class product. Don't believe they offer it in Australia, it's just on the 737s in terms of narrow bodies. So yeah, it should be a really exciting flight today. It is almost a 4-hour flight to Kuala Lumpur. So yeah, despite being a narrow body, still plenty of time to enjoy the Sri Lankan Airlines hospitality. One of my favourite flight reviewers, Josh Cahill, who I believe is these days a Sri Lankan expat, has certainly had plenty to say in his various flight reviews on Sri Lankan Airlines these days. He's certainly covered all the good and also the less good parts of Sri Lankan Airlines, being an airline that these days I believe is pretty well bankrupt. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting experience today. Should be a little bit different to usual Qantas and Virgin Jetstar sort of flight reviews from back home in Australia. So yeah, really don't know what to expect. Hopefully it should be a good one. So without further ado, let's head to the Colombo International Airport, get checked in, check out the lounge, and let's head over to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia today. And yeah, I'll see you once I get to the airport. Should be about a 55-minute journey, so yeah, I'll see you once I get there. Now as we embark on our super early ride to the airport this morning, just a little bit of route information about today's flight. So it's going to be about 3.5 hours or 2,500 kilometers as the crow flies. Pretty well going to be flying in a due easterly direction. It will take us straight over the Indian Ocean before we arrive into Kuala Lumpur around 4 o'clock this afternoon, once we take into consideration the 2.5 hour time difference. Now we arrived at the airport, it's just before 5 o'clock in the morning, or around 3 hours ahead of our departure today. It's around 32 kilometres from the centre of Colombo, the airport here in Sri Lanka. So yeah, definitely do yourself a favour, book a transfer in advance is definitely my recommendation, especially at this time of morning. Anyway, we're at the airport now. This is one of the airports you're not really going to be dawdling around. As soon as you get there, you have to show your boarding pass just to enter the terminal, and then shortly after that you've got to go through a preliminary security check just to get into the check-in hall. So yeah, fairly high security airport, this one here in Colombo. For your information, Colombo's Bandar Konaiki Airport is a relatively quiet airport in the grand scheme of things. In 2022, it only hosted around 5.5 million yearly passenger movements. Whilst technically there is a second international airport servicing Colombo, for all intents and purposes, the vast majority of scheduled passenger traffic into and out of Sri Lanka comes through Bandar Konaiki Airport. Interestingly enough, this airport, first founded in 1967, is a joint public and military airport, actually the home to the largest Sri Lankan Air Force base in the whole country. From here in Colombo, the majority of the flights departing from this airport depart to either the major cities of Southeast Asia, India, the Gulf states, and there's also a few select services longer haul to Europe operated by the base carrier Sri Lankan Airlines that we're flying today. Now that we've cleared that preliminary security check of our luggage and carry-on, Sri Lankan Airlines check-in here at Colombo is very much done the old-fashioned way with man check-in counters. Luckily, I'm flying business class today, so I get to cut what looks like a considerable queue, head to that priority check-in lane. I get checked in straight away by a friendly agent, so that's really good. In a matter of moments, I'm on my way. Few meters later, however, a friendly check-in agent chases me down. They must have forgot to give me my invitation to the Serendib lounge. So it was a nice touch. They were able to quickly chase me down before I got any further. Although I'm not really sure why an invitation was necessary anyway, because by flying business class with Sri Lankan Airlines, I would have thought I would have had access to the lounge by default anyway. Anyway, now as we pass the first Burger King I've seen in the whole of Sri Lanka in my last 2 weeks here, probably would have dined there this morning if I hadn't been upgraded to a business class. Can't help but notice it's really price gouging, charging US dollars, taking advantage of foreigners, and no doubt. Let's do something much better, and let's head over to the Serendib flagship Sri Lankan Airlines business class lounge. Here at Colombo Airport, the Serendib Lounge, you'll find just before you embark out on the walk to the international departure gates. You do have to do a security at the gate here at Colombo, so definitely allow yourself a little bit of time to walk to the gate and head through security after visiting the lounge. But yeah, here we are now at the Serendib Lounge. This is the flagship lounge for Sri Lankan Airlines across its whole network. One of the very few sort of indigenous Sri Lankan lounges. Looks very inviting at that front door, so let's head in now. It's just around 5:30 in the morning now, and the lounge, I can't help but notice, is incredibly quiet. So yeah, 5:30 in the morning, there's not a huge amount going on at this lounge at this time of day. I approach the buffet and I'm informed that it's closed for about the next 15 or 20 minutes as they do a changeover from presumably the overnight menu to the breakfast menu. Fear not, they got a self-service coffee machine, so I haven't had much sleep last night, so let's get a coffee fix while we're waiting. Not too bad coffee, but nothing amazing. And yeah, there's our first glimpse of our Sri Lankan Airlines A320 taking us over to Kuala Lumpur this morning and early this afternoon. So fast forward around 20 minutes and maybe around a dozen or so more passengers through the door. This lounge is now starting to feel marginally more busy, but still not that busy in the grand scheme of things. The buffet does open now, so let's go and have a look now. Grab a bite to eat for brekkie, and yeah, let's see what's on offer at the Serendib Lounge. So first impressions, it looks like a pretty good buffet breakfast range of options on offer this morning. Good mix of both Western cooked and continental breakfast options. There's also plenty of local Sri Lankan delicacies as well. So yeah, definitely looks like a good range of food on offer. In terms of drinks, there's a semi-tended self-serve bar. It's not overly extensive in range. It's got some soft drinks. It's got bottles of water, which are very handy in this part of the world. It's got a range of white and red wines, and it's also very impressively got champagne. which will be served to you by the bartender who's floating around. So Joseph Perrier champagne costs around $70 a bottle in Australia at Dan Murphy's, so probably a little bit more expensive than Moët Chandon. For breakfast, I'm not going overly over the top this morning, sticking to fairly familiar food for me. So I just get some fried rice, hash browns, and a few chicken sausages. And to be honest, this was actually really disappointing. The food was not hot at all, which was very strange. I thought, considering they'd closed the buffet to reload the menu and reload the food, I thought the food would be piping hot. Maybe it's just the selections I made didn't taste very good at all. Maybe the other options, the local Sri Lankan food, tasted much better. I don't know. But yeah, hash browns are stone cold, and yeah, it wasn't a great breakfast to say the least. So yeah, I know Sri Lankan Airlines often get rave reviews about its onboard catering and its food and that sort of stuff, and I'm sure they're absolute masters of the local Sri Lankan cuisine, no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, wasn't really in the mood for something sophisticated this morning. Just wanted some familiar breakfast favourites, and yeah, if you can't get hash browns right, and it seems like the food was just sitting out there overnight and it was really cold, then yeah, you can't get that right, then that's really disappointing regardless of how good your food might be elsewhere on the airline. Putting aside this disappointment with the food, putting that aside, the lounge itself, in terms of its design, its comfort and its amenities, it's pretty decent overall, though it does show a bit of a sign of its age, I reckon. But yeah, there's plenty of comfortable seating, there's showers, there's toilets, there's reasonably good Wi-Fi, which is pretty handy in this part of the world. And yeah, it's a pretty comfortable lounge, although it's probably nothing to rave home about either. Anyway, what does make it really good is its tarmac views. You can see all the Sri Lankan planes out on the tarmac, so that's really cool. The bigger 330s, the 321s, and the littler 320 that we're flying today. Also see some Middle Eastern carriers as well, Jazeera Airways or something like that. That looks like a pretty cool aircraft there as well. Anyway, as I now enjoy a glass of that very drinkable Joseph Perrier champagne at this quite unusually early hour, and who would I ever thought in this beautiful country of Sri Lanka, let's now go over the aircraft information about this Airbus A320 taking us over to Kuala Lumpur this morning. And funnily enough, here's a Sri Lankan A330 taxiing to the gate. It appears to be asserting its dominance as that beautiful Kuwaiti Jazeera Airbus A320 Neo seems to be retreating backwards. Anyway, here's our Sri Lankan Airbus A320 aircraft in the forefront of the window here. It's an approximately 12.5-year-old aircraft delivered direct to Sri Lankan Airlines in May 2011. Registration number 4 Romeo Alpha Bravo Mike. The whole time I've been at the lounge this morning, I've been taking a little bit of an observation of Sri Lankan safety standards. This is neither no criticism nor inferring anything like that I actually felt the safety of the flight was in danger. Absolutely not inferring that. But yeah, just noticing how the attitude to safety seems to be a little bit more relaxed over here compared to Australia. Plenty of guys working out on the tarmac without even wearing high vis. And this Sri Lankan Airlines tractor here breaks down in the middle of the road. But yeah, back home in Australia, that would probably cause considerable delays, as a huge crew of people would have to close down the area and safely remove it. But yeah, over here, you just get a guy in a forklift. He'll fork it out of the way and clear up that issue in a matter of no time, and things continue on as normal. And just like that, after unsuccessful first attempt, second time unlucky, and we got a liftoff on our worst for wear Sri Lankan Airlines tractor, which is conked out on the ground crew at Colombo Airport this morning. So with our worst for wear Sri Lankan Airlines tractor now well and truly struggling on its way, courtesy of that well worn out forklift, let's now also leave the lounge now and head to the gate, and let's come and join me on what should hopefully be a very, very memorable experience in business class on Sri Lankan Airlines over to Kuala Lumpur this morning. Now that we leave the Serendib lounge, which has been a pretty pleasant experience overall, minus the rather unenjoyable food that I had this morning, let's now walk to the gate. Not overly long to walk to the gates out here at Colombo Airport. Around about a 5-10 minute walk will get you within reach of most gates. Just allow yourself another maybe 10 to 15 minutes to clear security at the gate. It's at this point as well I'd recommend that you finalise any final shopping or dining needs, as once you go through security there really isn't much apart from the waiting area itself specific for that flight. It's now about 7:45 AM and without further ado, boarding is finally called, approximately 15 minutes behind schedule. Flying business class today does entitle me to a priority boarding to board the plane first, but to be honest I really just board at my leisure somewhere around the middle of the packs. Anyway, as we are now entering our Sri Lankan Airlines A320, very warm welcome on board. Here's my seat for today in the business class cabin, seat 4A. Looks very, very comfortable indeed. Keep in mind there are 3 different variants of the Sri Lankan A320. 3 different layouts indeed, so study the seat map carefully when it comes to choosing your seat. On this variant there is approximately 16 seats in a business class and there's 120 seats in economy class. In a business class there's a very, very comfortable recliner seats. They have a pitch of 41 inch and a width of 21 inch. Out the back in economy your seat pitch varies between 29 to 32 inch. And you have a seat width of 17 inch. As you'll notice, in business class it's a rather large cabin for a narrow body aircraft with 4 rows in a 2-2 configuration. This is quite a lot bigger than many other airlines such as Virgin Australia, who just have a 2-2 configuration on the 737s, and Qantas, which have a 2-2 configuration across 3 rows on their 737s. This means out the back of the bus in economy class, it would have to be one of the smallest economy class cabins going on an Airbus A320 aircraft today, I would think. With only 120 seats, this is much less seats out the back than your usual A320s, which for most airlines, particularly budget airlines, are operated in an all economy layout, usually having around 180 or 186 seats. Once boarding the aircraft, I'm greeted by a very, very friendly cabin crew, and then shortly after taking my seat, I'm given a selection of either a glass of sparkling water or a glass of apple juice. Kindly take the latter, which is a nice refreshing way to start the journey. Pity there wasn't any champagne or sparkling wine on offer, however, so I guess that was a little bit disappointing, but I guess it would have been a bit indulgent expecting it at that time of morning. Anyway, hot towels are also given out, which is a very, very nice touch, because at the end of the day, many airlines have conveniently used the pandemic as an excuse to ditch this hot towel service. That was great that Sri Lankan Airlines still do it. Now, as we're just about getting ready to push back, just a few first quick impressions about the seat itself. It's a very, very spacious business class seat. Must have to be one of the most spacious business class recliner seats going on a narrow body aircraft. So it looks like it's going to be a very, very comfortable flight today. And also at the seat you also got your printed menu and also a magazine, and you've also got a fold out entertainment screen as well, which you have to put out for the in-flight safety briefing. Once in there, I'll go over the seat features in much more detail and of course scrutinise everything about the in-flight business class service. But yeah, for now, what better time now as we taxi out to the runway to just sit back, relax, enjoy these beautiful views and final glimpses of Sri Lanka as we cruise out of Colombo Bankarani International Airport this morning. And just like that, we're pretty well reaching a cruising altitude now, and down below I can see beautiful interior of Sri Lanka is rapidly passing by. Really had fond memories of this country, really looking forward to visiting Sri Lanka again rather sooner than later. Anyway, it is now time. We'll have a look at the in-flight entertainment system on the Airbus A320 in business class for Sri Lankan Airlines. So yeah, you do get in-flight entertainment system, folds out from the side of the seat, as so many other business class recliner seats have the same sort of setup. So yeah, you do get included headphones. I think they're noise cancelling, but I'm not 100% sure. They don't look overly great quality for business class, however, to be honest. But yeah, they get the job done for a reasonably short flight. Anyway, here's our entertainment screen here. So yeah, it folds out from the side, as does the a tray table as well. It's a fairly small screen, a fairly old-fashioned system by the looks. The responsiveness on the screen itself is really quite poor. It's really quite tiresome to change between all the different selections and that sort of stuff. So yeah, pretty old screen to be honest. But yeah, there is a moderately okay range of movies, TV shows, and also an in-flight moving map. There is also some other sort of travel feature content as well, very, very short videos. So yeah, in general, the entertainment offerings on Sri Lankan Airlines aren't too bad, but yeah, it's certainly a fairly old system, and if Sri Lankan Airlines could revamp it to a more modern, responsive screen, that would be really, really good. Anyway, being only a 3 to 3.5 hour flight, you only really need to watch 1, possibly 2 movies on this flight to be entertained. I just watched a 2011 Steven Soderbergh blockbuster Contagion, which is awfully reminiscent of a more recent pandemic. So yeah, that killed the time quite nicely after lunch. So all in all, I think my opinion on Sri Lanka's in-flight entertainment is that it's acceptable. It's not a huge range of content, but it's nothing too shabby either, if a little bit dated. My recommendation, however, would be if you're flying on a particularly long Sri Lankan Airlines long-haul flight, or you do indeed fly Sri Lankan Airlines quite often, I'd definitely recommend loading up your own device with some of your own content, TV shows, movies, documentaries, etc, etc, because yeah, you might soon find yourself running out of content to watch on Sri Lankan Airlines, as it's probably not the most extensive range, to be honest. Anyway, just before breakfast is served, let's have a quick test of this very reclinable recliner seat. Certainly does the job in that regard, and it's certainly a guilt-free recline here in the fourth row, with the benefit of the bulkhead being immediately behind you. Anyway, it is now time for breakfast, and impressively you still get a printed menu here on Sri Lankan Airlines. So yeah, let's have a look at the offerings on board this morning. Whilst I generally consider breakfast to be the least exciting meal on flights, nonetheless it does look like a pretty impressive menu selection here on Sri Lankan this morning. So there's a choice of 3 mains in addition to a vegetarian option. So you got the cheese omelette, you got the Sri Lankan style milk rice trio, and you got the string hopper pilaf. And there's also a vegetarian option as well. I'm sure many of you foodies out there, especially when flying Sri Lankan Airlines, would be dying to absolutely try one of those 2 Sri Lankan options. They look absolutely amazing, I must admit. Fortunately, I've got to be a little bit careful due to having a food allergy. So yeah, I'll just be going for the cheese omelette today, playing it safe. But yeah, overall it was pretty good breakfast today. My omelette came accompanied with herb cream sauce, chicken sausage, sautéed spinach, pan-seared cherry tomato, and a lyonnaise potato. Also had like a yogurt on the side as well, and a croissant, so that was really nice. And the breakfast provided a solid way to kick off our Sri Lankan Airlines experience this morning. Now we're on to the tea service. Obviously Sri Lankan Airlines provides itself on its fine Ceylon tea offerings. There must be at least 10 different varieties of tea that you can order on Sri Lankan Airlines in business class. Everything from your classic English breakfast to your Earl Greys, to your lemon teas, chais, spice teas, peppermint teas, jasmine teas, everything, you name it. You've got some of the finest Ceylon tea in the sky. You can get it on Sri Lankan Airlines. Really enjoyed my Ceylon Earl Grey tea. Could certainly notice the difference and understand why Sri Lanka produces such great tea. Now that we've got breakfast out of the way, let's have a look at the seat features in more detail on our Sri Lankan A320 in business class. So as you can see, they're incredibly spacious and very reclinable. Very must be one of the most spacious and reclinable recliner seats going in business class on a narrow body aircraft. They're so spacious actually that I'm surprised if Sri Lanka Airlines put the investment in. There's so much room, you could probably just about get lie flat seats in this room that they got allocated for business class, I reckon. That's just my opinion. However, at the seat you also get a reasonably good range of amenities. You get a pretty comfortable pillow, and you get eye shade and also a blanket as well, so that could come in handy. And yeah, just in general, while it isn't the most modern business class cabin, it is a fairly dated product in terms of the hard product. It is a spacious and a very comfortable cabin, plenty of room, and I think really the hard product is pretty darn good. Definitely rate their recliner seats, you know, over your Virgin Australia or Qantas, for example. So yeah, for short to medium haul flights in the Sri Lankan network, I think these recliner seats do just fine. Now that much of the hard work of showcasing Sri Lankan Airlines in-flight service and hard product is out of the way, hard life I know, showcasing business class flight reviews, but yeah, it was a very tiring morning on much sleep trying to get to the airport so early. So yeah, what better time now to enjoy some of the offerings in the alcohol department available on Sri Lankan Airlines in business class. So first up, we're starting with Lion beer. Needs no introduction. Had plenty of this amazing drop in Sri Lanka. Really solid overall beer. Lion is practically the only mainstream brewery here in Sri Lanka. They do produce a stout and a stronger version of the lager as well. But yeah, this is a very solid all-round golden sort of Pilsner lager. Very suitable to Sri Lanka's climate. So very enjoyable beer. Lion, definitely a good one here in Asia. You're certainly not going to need to fly business class to get a Lion on Sri Lankan Airlines. However, the only beer that there is on Sri Lankan Airlines, regardless of what class you're flying, is indeed Lion beer. So yeah, be sure to check out one when you're flying economy class as well, because they're very tasty beer. Anyway, let's now progress to something a lot more business class like, and let's try the champagne on offer. I believe it's the Joseph Perrier champagne, which is the same stuff they had in the lounge, coming in around $70 a bottle here in Australia. Puts it a little bit more expensive than a Moët Chandon, but yeah, it's still very much a starter level champagne. But yeah, when you're getting it on a regional flight in Southeast Asia, that is pretty darn good in anyone's book. So yeah, be sure to indulge in a glass or two next time you're flying Sri Lankan Airlines, because you're sure not going to be getting it when you're flying domestic in Qantas or Virgin Australia business class back home in Australia, domestic in the States, or regional European business class either. Now as I just sit back, relax and settle in for the last couple hours of our flight over to KL today, just offer my preliminary thoughts on the business class experience with Sri Lankan Airlines. I think overall it's been a really solid experience today. Originally I paid 383 Australian dollars for my economy class seat on Sri Lankan Airlines, which I do think is quite pricey considering AirAsia were offering seats for at least half that cost, and Batik Air were at least half that cost as well. So definitely paying a premium for Sri Lankan Airlines. But yeah, when I had the opportunity to upgrade, I put basically in almost the minimum bid. I think it was around 233 Australian dollars. So yeah, all in all, considering the cost of the upgrade bid and also the original economy class price, I think it came in around 616 Australian dollars. So yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable deal for a 3.5 hour business class flight. So yeah, I'm not usually the person who would buy business class flights outright. Really don't think I have the money to simply buy business class flights outright. They're very expensive. So yeah, getting them through points or upgrade bids is definitely the way I like to approach getting business class flights, and this is exactly what I did for this flight. I think the $230 bid, it was a pretty fair bid in the end, and I think it was fairly well worth putting that bid in. Certainly wouldn't put bid in for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars more. Don't think it would be worth it. But yeah, for the almost minimum bid I put in, I think it was very well worth it for sort of a once in a blue moon occasion. Certainly not an absolute necessity to fly business class. I certainly wouldn't spend too much more on this product. But yeah, for the experience, I've absolutely got no regrets putting in the bid for business class for this flight. In terms of assessing the business class product relative to how much I paid for the upgrade bid, really can't complain overall, to be honest. I think the hard product is pretty comfortable, a seat that you get, very spacious. Definitely showing its signs of age, definitely a few areas for room for improvement in that regards, but the soft product's really good. The catering is really top notch, and the crew and the service is really good. And just like that, we're starting our descent into Kuala Lumpur International Airport, which is located in the Sepang region of Malaysia, about 45 kilometers south to Kuala Lumpur's city centre. Once on the ground, I'll then offer my final thoughts and verdicts on today's Sri Lankan Airlines business class experience, also my AussieJetSetter score index for this flight. So yeah, just sit back, relax and enjoy our landing for the time being. Now that we're on the ground here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, let me offer some final thoughts on today's business class experience with Sri Lankan Airlines before I head over to the AussieJetSetter score index for this flight. So what more can I say in conclusion about this flight? I thought it was a very solid flight overall, very much in line with my expectations relative to the price I ultimately paid for business class for this flight. Originally I had booked economy class. It was a pretty expensive economy class ticket, coming in at 383 Australian dollars. That's considerably more expensive than AirAsia or Batik Air, even more expensive than Malaysia Airlines. So I had quite high expectations flying economy. They certainly appear to have a lot of inclusions in economy, so that's really good. But yeah, when the opportunity came along to upgrade, I pretty well just put in the minimum bid. I think you'd only want to put in not more than the minimum, simply because the original economy price ticket was quite expensive to begin with. So yeah, I just go for the minimum. If you are successful in getting an upgrade at a minimum bid, you're doing pretty well, I reckon. So yeah, flying Sri Lankan Airlines today has been something I've been longing out for quite some time now. As soon as I booked the trip to Sri Lanka, which was many months in advance, I straight away, one of the first flights I booked for the trip was this Sri Lankan Airlines trip. Even if it was in economy class, I was always really looking forward to it. Saying a bit of a different experience, a bit of a different sort of airline. Heard lots of publicity in the press about Sri Lankan Airlines. Certainly not all of it's been that crash hot in terms of a bankrupt airline and safety and all that sort of stuff, but there's lots of people heaping praise on the airline as well, especially for its soft product and that. So yeah, we are preempting my AussieJetSetter final score for this flight. I think the hard product is pretty decent overall for a narrow body aircraft. It's one of the better business class experiences you're going to get, although there's certainly areas that they can overhaul to improve the hard product experience. But yeah, the soft product experience was absolutely fantastic, I think. Well, without further ado, it's now time to get the AussieJetSetter score index for this flight. As this flight involved visiting an airline lounge on the airline that I was flying on today, I'm going to incorporate that also into the index for this review. First cab off the rank, as always, is ground handling, and yeah, Sri Lankan Airlines very much delivered in this regard. With priority check-in, I was able to pretty well instantly check in upon arriving at the check-in counter back in Colombo, and yeah, my bags had well and truly arrived at the carousel by the time I cleared a very slow afternoon in customs here at Colombo Airport. So 9 out of 10, very solid in the ground handling department. Next up, we've got the lounge, which is a Serendib, the flagship Sri Lankan Airlines lounge in Colombo. What more could I say? It was a bit of a mixed experience today. While overall it's a pretty comfortable lounge, really appreciate the great tarmac views, pretty good amenities overall. What did let it down, and really did let it down, actually was the food. It wasn't that good this morning, and you know, basic breakfast food, it was stone cold. It wasn't that great. At least it was made up with champagne, so that was pretty good. So mixed score, I'll give it 6 out of 10. Next up, we've got aircraft and seat conditions. So the Sri Lankan A320 that we've flown on today obviously is a very well travelled Airbus for the Sri Lankan Airlines fleet. Very much would have had great mileage for the airline over the years. So yeah, it does show a little bit signs of its age. But yeah, I think the hard product, although it's pretty old fashioned, is actually pretty darn good. Like, they're probably some of the most spacious and most recliner seats that you can get on a narrow body, you know, in business class going around. So I think it's a pretty good hard product overall. Sure, the seat is nothing like the state-of-the-art lie flat seat like Singapore Airlines 737 MAX 8, but certainly wouldn't have the price tag either. So yeah, it's more than acceptable and more than comfortable for a relatively short 3-hour flight like today. So 15 hour 20 I think is very well deserved for Sri Lankan Airlines in this regard. Next up, we've got the crew and in-flight service, and I thought this is where Sri Lankan Airlines really excelled today. Really rate Sri Lankan Airlines soft product. Crew were really friendly and attentive, and despite it being quite a rough flight weather-wise and the seatbelt sign turned on for much of the flight, crew did their best to work around this as much as possible, and yeah, where possible and safe, they continued providing great service. Food was really good, a good range of options. Flying in business class, you could get a Western breakfast as I did today, which is pretty darn good, and you can also get local Sri Lankan delicacies as well. So no complaints whatsoever in the service department. I give Sri Lankan Airlines a solid 18 out of 20. Next up, we've got entertainment. This is a bit of a mixed assessment at this one. At the end of the day, Sri Lankan Airlines does have in-flight entertainment screens, as you would really hope when flying a business class, to be honest. But to be honest, it's not the best entertainment system. It's not overly responsive or modern. The range is okay of shows and movies, but yeah, it's not that great either. But yeah, in saying that, many narrow-body aircraft don't even have in-flight entertainment screens, even in business class. So if you're looking in this perspective, Sri Lankan Airlines certainly do have a one-up on many other airlines that they compete with. So yeah, I'll give them 12 out of 20. It is there, but yeah, it's nothing amazing. Last but not least, we've got value for money, and once again, it's pretty marginal for this flight. Reckon the upgrade I paid was a pretty respectable a price, although I wouldn't pay too much more, to be honest, especially considering the original cost for the economy class ticket I reckon was quite expensive, even though it being an all-inclusive airline. So yeah, at the end of the day, I think the price I paid all up was just over 600 Australian dollars. I think it's pretty fair for a business class flight, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't be paying much more either. So yeah, I'll give it 12 out of 20 in terms of value for money. It's pretty marginal at the end of the day. So yeah, in handing down my AussieJetSetter score index for this flight, comes in a respectable 72 out of 100 overall for this flight. So overall today, a very decent experience flying business class in Sri Lankan Airlines. Would I recommend flying them again? Quite possibly, if the price was right, although I wouldn't be paying too much more for this experience, to be honest. Certainly many more things in the positive ledger than the negative ledger, but that's not to say there's certainly still a few areas room for improvement for Sri Lankan Airlines, which if they can perfect, would really make this one of the great airlines in the region. Now as we overlook a great view of the Petronas Towers here in central KL at night, thank you very much for watching our flight review as we've taken Sri Lankan Airlines all the way over to Malaysia from Colombo this morning. Really hope you've enjoyed it. It's given you a bit of an appreciation and insight as to what it's like flying Sri Lankan Airlines, especially in a business class in 2023. Hopefully it gives you a bit of perspective and informs your judgment as whether it's worth flying Sri Lankan. If you have enjoyed it, really appreciate it. Give it a like, hit that subscribe and bell button as well so you won't miss another one. Plenty more flight reviews from around Asia coming up on the channel in coming weeks and months. Also got my other regular walking tours, driving tours and other sort of travel destination content, so be sure to check out that as well if it interests you. But yeah, in the meantime, you can also visit my website AussieJetSetter.com.au for all those flight reviews, industry news, destination guides, frequent flyer hacks and more. Put a link to socials in the description as below as well. So yeah, be sure to check out my Instagram for all the short form sort of content in real time where I'm traveling in the world, and be sure to consider joining my Discord server as well for the channel to stay a part of the AussieJetSetter community. But until the next one, thank you very much for watching today's flight review, and until the next one, safe travels wherever that might take you.